AITA for not letting my sister's wedding ruin my life. I, 29F, have a sister, Jane, 26F, who's always been the golden child in our family. We've had our fair share of sibling rivalry over the years, but I've always tried to keep the peace. I was the quieter, more independent one, while Jane was always the center of attention, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. But things came to a head last year when she got engaged to her long-term boyfriend, Ben, 29M. Here's where the trouble started. Jane was determined to have a perfect wedding. And by perfect, I mean she wanted every single detail to go exactly as she envisioned it. I'm talking about a year-long engagement, 5 bridal showers, a destination bachelorette party, and a wedding that would cost more than most people's homes. She even went as far as to say that her wedding would be the event of the decade in our hometown, and she expected everyone to treat it that way. Now, I'm not against big weddings, but I also know how expensive they can get. And for some reason, Jane was adamant that no one in our family would be allowed to have any opinion on her wedding, especially me. She said, "I'm the bride, and I'm in charge of everything." This would have been fine, but she started making some extremely controlling demands about things that had nothing to do with her. For example, she told me I couldn't wear a dress I'd already bought because it wasn't up to her standards. It was a simple navy blue number I thought was elegant, but Jane insisted it was too dull for a wedding. Instead, she made me buy a dress that cost over $500, and I was expected to wear it without complaint. Fine, whatever, I didn't want to make waves at first. Things really started going downhill when she began assigning me jobs as part of her wedding. She told me I would be in charge of helping her with the emotional labor, which she defined as making sure everyone else stays happy, so Jane doesn't have to worry about it. I thought this was a bit much, but again, I didn't say anything. My biggest issue came when she demanded I help with her bridal shower and then put my name down as one of the people organizing the bachelorette party, without asking me, by the way. She'd taken the liberty of signing me up for all of these things because, in her words, everyone knows I can handle it. Fast forward to a few weeks before the wedding. I had made the mistake of telling Jane that I wasn't happy about how everything was going down. I said I felt like I had been pressured into being her emotional support person throughout this whole process, and I didn't want to lose myself in it. Her response was to cry and accuse me of ruining her happiness and being selfish because everything is about her wedding, not about me. At that point, I was done. I didn't want to ruin the wedding, but I also didn't want to sacrifice my own mental health for the sake of her perfect day. So I decided to step back. I told Jane I would still be there for her on the day of the wedding, but I wouldn't be doing any of the other things she expected me to do. I would go to the wedding, support her, and then leave. No AITA soe. No bachelorette party. I wouldn't be in charge of anything except showing up and being a guest. The night before the wedding, Jane came over to my apartment, visibly upset. She asked if we could talk, and when she got in the door, she immediately started crying. She begged me to be more involved, saying it would mean so much to her if I helped her with the little things. She even guilt-tripped me by saying, "I'm just trying to have the best day of my life, and you're ruining it by being so difficult." I told her that I would be there for the ceremony, but that I wasn't going to be her wedding planner. I explained that I had my limits and couldn't be everything she wanted me to be. She didn't take it well. Jane called me cold, selfish, and unsupportive, and then stormed out. I didn't hear from her for the next few days, and I honestly thought she was just upset about the wedding. But then came the real kicker. On the day of the wedding, Jane sent me a long text saying she couldn't trust me to be a part of her special day and that I wasn't welcome in the bridal party anymore. She even told me I should stay in the back at the ceremony and that I wasn't allowed to sit with the family during the reception. I was floored. I showed up at the wedding as promised, but I had to find my seat by myself and had no idea where to go. I sat in the back of the venue like a random guest, and I felt completely humiliated. Jane didn't speak to me the whole day, and she didn't acknowledge me during the reception. She seemed perfectly content with how things had turned out. At this point, I started wondering if I had made the wrong call. Was I being a terrible sister? Was I supposed to drop everything to support her and make her wedding day perfect, even if it meant losing myself in the process? My friends have all said I did the right thing, but my parents are upset with me for making Jane's wedding about me and not being more accommodating. They've said I should have been more understanding and helped her more, even if it was uncomfortable for me. I feel like I've lost my sister over this, and I'm struggling to decide if I made the right choice. AITA for stepping back and not allowing my sister's wedding to take over my life. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious, when do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding because she made me choose between her and my partner. I, 29F, have been best friends with Katie, 30F, for almost 15 years. We've been through everything together. High school drama, college chaos, breakups, and all the milestones of adulthood. I was her maid of honor last year when she got engaged, and she's always been a huge part of my life. But recently, our friendship has been strained because of her wedding plans, and I'm at a point where I'm honestly wondering if I'm in the wrong. So here's the situation. I've been in a serious relationship with my partner, Chris, 31M, for 3 years. Chris and I live together, have a dog, and are genuinely happy. He's great, caring, supportive, everything I'd want in a partner. He's always been friendly with Katie, and they get along fine, but they aren't exactly close. That's important for later. Katie's wedding is in a few months, and she's been planning it for what feels like forever. She's always had very specific ideas about her big day, how everything should go, who should be in the wedding party, and what the vibe should be. I've been on board with all of it, especially because she's been my best friend for so long. A few weeks ago, Katie called me to discuss something important. She told me that she had decided to limit the number of people in her bridal party to a very specific group of people. Fine, I get that. It's her day, her rules. But then she told me that she couldn't have both Chris and I attend the wedding as a couple because she was limiting the total number of guests, and she needed to prioritize family and friends who were closest to her. I was taken aback at first. Katie's reasoning was that since Chris wasn't in her inner circle and wasn't involved much in the wedding planning, it would make the day feel less intimate if he was there. She suggested I either come as her maid of honor and go alone, or attend with Chris but step down as her maid of honor. She said it would be awkward for me to have him there and still be in the bridal party. She insisted that she couldn't have too many outsiders, and it was just the way things had to be. I was shocked. Katie and I have been best friends for so long, and I've never been asked to choose between her and someone else, especially not my partner. I told her that I didn't feel comfortable making that choice, and that if I had to choose, I would pick Chris. She didn't take that well and insisted I was being unreasonable and unsupportive. Katie then went on to say that if I couldn't prioritize our friendship over a relationship that wasn't even that long-term, then she would understand if I couldn't be her maid of honor at all. That felt like a slap in the face. I told her I would think about it, but deep down, I already knew where I stood. I was hurt. She's asking me to choose between her and my partner of 3 years, someone I'm building a life with. How is that even a reasonable request? I talked it over with Chris, and he was supportive. He said he didn't want to be the reason I lost a close friendship, but he also said he didn't want me to feel pressured to choose him over my friend if it made me uncomfortable. We both agreed it was a tough situation. After taking some time to reflect, I decided I couldn't go. I texted Katie and told her that while I loved her and wanted to be there for her, I couldn't attend her wedding if it meant giving up my partner. I told her that I understood if she was upset, but this was my boundary. I said I hoped she understood that I was trying to be true to myself and my relationship with Chris. Katie immediately blew up. She said I was being selfish, that I was making it about me, and that I was throwing away our friendship over some guy. She accused me of not being able to prioritize her and her special day, and that I was being ridiculous. She even said she'd always been there for me, but now it felt like I didn't care about her. I tried to explain, but she wouldn't listen. She blocked me on social media and sent me an angry message saying she didn't need friends who couldn't support her when it mattered most. I haven't heard from her since, and it's been almost 2 weeks. I know weddings are supposed to be important, but this feels extreme. I've always been there for Katie, and I've been supportive through all of her relationships, her ups and downs, and her other life events. I would have done anything for her, but I just can't throw away my relationship with Chris over this. I think she's asking too much, but at the same time, I don't want to lose my best friend. So, AITA for refusing to attend my best friend's wedding because she made me choose between her and my partner? Would love to hear your thoughts. I'm genuinely torn. I miss her, but I'm not sure how to fix this if she's not willing to understand where I'm coming from. AITA for confronting my sister about her perfect life and causing drama at our family gathering. I, 29F, have an older sister, Sarah, 34F, who has always been the golden child in our family. She's the one who has everything: a perfect career, a seemingly flawless marriage, and 2 beautiful kids. Growing up, it always felt like she was put on a pedestal by our parents, and no matter how hard I tried to achieve or do anything noteworthy, I was always compared to her. It wasn't malicious, but it definitely created a sense of resentment in me that I didn't know how to process at the time. To be honest, I've never been able to match up to Sarah's level of success. I work as a marketing manager, but it's not anything fancy. I've been single for a few years and struggled to meet the right person. And while I'm happy with my friends and my life in general, I can't shake the feeling that I've never fully lived up to the expectations that were set for me as the younger sibling. I know my parents love me, but I've always felt like I've been in Sarah's shadow. A couple of weeks ago, we had a big family gathering to celebrate our mom's birthday. It was the first time in months that the whole family was together since everyone has been busy, especially Sarah with her kids and work. From the minute I walked in, it felt like everything revolved around her and her family. Mom was doting on her kids, talking about Sarah's latest promotion, how her house was finally renovated and how she had it all together. I couldn't escape it, and it was eating at me. I get that they're proud of her, but it just felt like they were completely disregarding everything I was doing with my own life. After about an hour of this, I started to feel suffocated by all the perfect talk. It was like everything I said was either glossed over or immediately shifted to Sarah and her latest achievement. I snapped. I don't know what exactly triggered it, but I lost my cool. I looked at my parents and said, it's nice to see how amazing Sarah's life is, but can we maybe talk about something else for a change? I feel like I'm just here to fill the space between your constant praise for her. My mom immediately looked shocked, and Sarah just laughed awkwardly, probably thinking I was joking. But I wasn't. I could feel the heat rising in my chest, so I continued, honestly, it's exhausting, Every conversation, every family gathering, it's just about Sarah's perfect life. I'm happy for her, but it would be nice to not feel like I'm invisible for once. My dad gave me a stern look, and Sarah's smile disappeared. She looked genuinely hurt, and I could tell that my words had struck a nerve. She tried to play it off, saying something like, I didn't realize you felt that way, but I've been busy with my life. It's hard for me to keep up with everything too, I shot back. I'm not asking you to keep up with everything, but maybe not every conversation has to be about your perfect little world, Sarah. The room fell quiet, and I could see the tension building. My mom jumped in, trying to smooth things over, saying, Sweetie, we're just proud of Sarah. We don't mean to make you feel left out. But it was too late. I was already beyond frustrated, and the words just kept coming. Well, it's hard not to feel left out when everything in this family seems to revolve around her. I can't even get a moment to talk about my own life without being compared to her success. That's when Sarah snapped. She got defensive, which I wasn't expecting at all. You think it's easy for me? You think I don't have my struggles? I have 2 kids, a full-time job, and I'm constantly juggling everything. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's perfect. And you don't get to make me feel bad for working hard to make my life the way it is. I don't know what happened, but I snapped back. Oh, don't even start. You have it easy compared to most of us. You get to live in a big house, have a supportive husband, and still get all the praise for doing the bare minimum. You can't even pretend like your life is anything but a highlight reel. At this point, the entire room was silent. Everyone was staring at us. I had crossed the line and I knew it, but I couldn't take it back. Sarah looked like she was about to cry, and my parents were angry. They told me to calm down and that I was being unfair. My mom said, You're being really hurtful, and you know that. We love you, but this isn't the time or place for this kind of confrontation. The rest of the evening was awkward. I tried to apologize, but it didn't seem to help much. Sarah didn't talk to me the whole time, and when we finally left, I could tell my parents were upset with me, too. I haven't heard from Sarah since, and things between us feel strained. I've tried texting her a couple of times to apologize and explain that I didn't mean to hurt her, but she hasn't responded. Now, I'm left wondering if I overreacted. I know I've always struggled with feeling overshadowed by Sarah, but I didn't think it would come to this. I feel guilty for making her feel bad, but I also feel like my feelings have been ignored for years, and I was just fed up. So, AITA for confronting my sister and causing drama at our family gathering. AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancée live with us after she got kicked out of her apartment. So, here's the situation. I, 28M, have a younger brother, Sam, 24M, who recently got engaged to a woman, Rachel, 26F. They've been together for about a year, and things have been moving pretty fast. I'm not sure if it's a good idea, but I've kept my opinions to myself. Sam is a great guy, but he can be a little naive when it comes to relationships. Rachel has always seemed off to me, but I've never said anything directly to Sam because, well, it's his life. I've been living with my girlfriend, Lisa, 27F, for a couple of years now, and things have been going great. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment in a decent area, and things are pretty much as perfect as they can be. We don't have much room for anyone else. So, when my brother called me last week to say that Rachel had been kicked out of her apartment after an argument with her roommate and had nowhere to go, I didn't really know what to do. Sam immediately asked me if Rachel could stay with us for a while. He said it would be temporary, just a few weeks, until she figured things out with her roommate and found a new place. Now, I'll admit that I've never been a huge fan of Rachel. She's always been a bit dramatic, in my opinion. She's very self-centered and has this tendency to be very manipulative when things don't go her way. She's also the type to make everything about her, even when it's clearly not. I've seen it firsthand on several occasions. There's one incident where she went on this big rant about how unfair it was that I didn't invite her to a family barbecue, even though I didn't even know her that well at the time, and the guest list was already pretty full. I tried to brush it off, but it stuck with me. But anyway, back to the situation with the living arrangement. Sam made it clear that he didn't want Rachel to have to deal with the stress of trying to find a new apartment while couch surfing, and he was hoping we'd help out. Lisa and I discussed it, and honestly, I wasn't thrilled about it. Lisa was even more against it, but she didn't want to say no outright because she knew Sam would be disappointed. So after a lot of back and forth, we agreed to let Rachel stay for a little while, thinking it would only be a few weeks max. Big mistake. Rachel moved in last Monday, and since then, it's been nothing short of a nightmare. She has absolutely no respect for our space, our routine, or even basic common decency. The first issue was the mess. She immediately took over the bathroom, leaving her stuff everywhere, makeup, hair tools, you name it. I don't mind if someone leaves a few things, but she turned the bathroom into her personal beauty salon. She would leave the lights on for hours, making the whole apartment feel like it was always daytime. I mentioned this to her once, in a very calm and polite way, but she just shrugged it off and said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just forget sometimes." Then there's the noise. Rachel has this really loud and high-pitched laugh, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it sounds like a hyena being strangled. She laughs at everything, whether it's funny or not, and she does it at the most inappropriate times. Like when Lisa and I are trying to have a quiet evening watching a movie, Rachel is in the living room watching her own thing, and every few minutes she bursts out into this cackling laugh. It's so disruptive that we can't even hear our own show anymore. When I asked her if she could tone it down, she said, "Well, I can't help it. That's just how I laugh." I tried to explain that it wasn't the laugh itself, but the constant noise, and she just told me I was being too sensitive. I let it slide because I didn't want to make waves, but then came the real deal breaker. On Thursday night, I came home from work and found Rachel sitting on the couch in the living room, half-dressed, mind you, eating some takeout. She had left the front door wide open. When I walked in, she didn't even acknowledge me. She just kept eating her food, as if it was perfectly normal to leave the door wide open and have no one else in the apartment notice. I was furious, so I calmly asked her why the door was open. She just shrugged and said, "I don't know, it was hot in here." I pointed out that it was late and that we live in a safe neighborhood, but I didn't want to risk anything happening, especially with the door wide open. Rachel laughed it off and said, "You're overreacting. It's fine." By now, I was starting to get fed up. The whole thing felt like an invasion of my personal space, and I had reached the point where I couldn't ignore it anymore. That night, I told Lisa that I didn't feel comfortable with Rachel staying here any longer, especially since it was clear she wasn't respecting our home. Lisa agreed, but she also didn't want to hurt Sam's feelings. We decided to talk to him and let him know how uncomfortable Rachel's behavior had made us. Sam was upset, of course. He told me that Rachel was going through a tough time and that I should be more understanding. I get that, but I don't think that gives her the right to make everyone else's life miserable in the process. I called Rachel into the living room the next day and told her that we wouldn't be able to let her stay with us any longer. She immediately started crying, saying she had nowhere else to go, and Sam called me later to accuse me of being cold-hearted and unsupportive. He said I was being unreasonable, that Rachel was only staying with us temporarily, and that I was making a big deal out of nothing. I explained that it wasn't about the length of time, but about how uncomfortable she had made things in our home, and I didn't think it was fair to either Lisa or me to keep her here under those conditions. Now, Sam and I aren't speaking, and Rachel is still acting like I'm the villain in all of this. I feel like I was fair in my decision and that I shouldn't have to endure someone else's bad behavior just because she's going through a tough time. But I also know I might have been a bit harsh. AITA for telling Rachel she can't stay with us anymore. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding because of her unconventional wedding plans. So, here's the backstory. I, 28M, have a sister, Emma, 30F, who is getting married to her fiancé, James, 33M. They've been together for about 5 years now, and while I don't know James super well, I can tell he makes her happy. I love my sister, and I want her to have the wedding of her dreams, but recently I've been struggling with some of the plans she's put in place. To give a bit of context, my sister has always been a bit unconventional, for lack of a better word. She's one of those people who's always been different. She's into alternative lifestyles, spirituality, and thinks very outside the box. I have no problem with that. To each their own. However, the way she wants to carry out her wedding is where I'm drawing the line. First, she decided she doesn't want a traditional ceremony. Fine, I get it, it's her wedding, but the details are what's throwing me off. She wants to have a sacred union ceremony, which is a type of spiritual ceremony that's more about affirming the couple's bond rather than a legal marriage. They don't plan on having a marriage license, at least not initially. Instead, they'll be spiritually bound in a private ceremony led by someone called a spiritual guide. No priest, no judge, just the guide, them, and their closest friends and family. Now, here's where it gets weirder. The entire thing is taking place in a secluded forest outside the city. I'm not talking about a park, but deep in the woods, with no running water, no bathrooms, and no reception. The ceremony is supposed to take place at dusk under the stars. Emma and James have even asked us to wear nature-inspired clothing, which means everything from flower crowns to earth-toned outfits, and absolutely no shoes. The whole thing has a very boho vibe, and I just don't know how I feel about it. But it's not just the ceremony that's been bothering me. It's everything else. They've said that there will be no formal dinner, just a big potluck where everyone brings a dish to share. And no, it's not just the food that's unconventional. Emma said she wants the whole event to be self-sufficient and community-driven, which to her means no hired photographers, no professional catering, no DJ. It's going to be all about human connection and people coming together to celebrate their love without any commercialism. She even wants everyone to contribute to the energy of the ceremony by meditating beforehand and being fully present in the moment. I guess what's frustrating me the most is that she's completely disregarded what a lot of us are used to when it comes to weddings. My family is more traditional. We've had some fairly standard weddings over the years, and I've always envisioned my sister's wedding being something similar, something where everyone can dress up, enjoy good food, and have a proper celebration. Not whatever this is. I tried talking to her about it. I said that I understood she wanted something unique and personal, but I felt like the whole thing was a bit too much. I told her that I would love to celebrate with her, but I wasn't sure if I could attend a wedding that had no structure or traditional elements. I also mentioned how uncomfortable I felt about the whole no shoes rule. I mean, seriously, no shoes, the lack of facilities, and how it was going to be pretty hard for me to get there since I don't have a car and public transport doesn't really go that far into the woods. Emma got really upset and told me that I was being closed-minded and that I wasn't respecting her vision. She said this wasn't about tradition or comfort. It was about the experience, and if I didn't want to be part of it, then I didn't have to come. She even said that I was making it about me instead of celebrating her love with James, which hit me pretty hard. I won't lie, I've been going back and forth on whether or not to go. Part of me wants to just suck it up, put on some weird outfit, and go along with it. I love my sister, and I want to support her, but the other part of me feels like it's just too much. I've talked to some of my friends about it, and some are saying that I should just attend because it's her big day, and who cares if it's not my style? Others agree with me, saying that the whole thing sounds like a logistical nightmare, and that she's being a little inconsiderate of people's comfort and expectations. So now I'm stuck. I've been thinking about just skipping the wedding, but that feels like it would cause drama, and I really don't want to ruin things with her. On the other hand, I don't want to be forced into participating in something that I don't feel aligns with my values or comfort zone. AITA for considering not attending my sister's wedding because of her unconventional plans, or should I just suck it up and support her, no matter how odd it seems to me? Thanks for reading. AITA for refusing to help my sister after she lied to my parents and ruined my engagement. So, this is a bit of a long one, but I need to get some perspective here. I'm 28, and let's call me Emma, got engaged to my fiancé, Jake, we'll call him that for privacy, about 8 months ago. We've been together for 4 years, and things have been going pretty smoothly until recently. My family is very close-knit, and my parents are supportive of my relationship, even though Jake isn't exactly their favorite person, mainly because of a few disagreements in the past. They've warmed up to him over time, though, and they've been decent enough at the engagement party and holiday gatherings. I also have a younger sister, Lily, who's 24. I love her, but we've never really gotten along in a sisterly bond type of way. She's always been very different from me. She's more the free-spirited, impulsive type who doesn't really think things through. I'm a more level-headed one who plans ahead, keeps things organized, etc. Honestly, I've always felt a bit more responsible for our family dynamic than she has, but whatever. A few weeks ago, Lily called me up and told me she was going through a rough patch in her relationship with her boyfriend, Sam. I wasn't really surprised because she'd been bouncing in and out of relationships since she was a teenager, and none of them ever seemed to last. But she asked me for some advice, and since I do have more relationship experience, I gave her a few pointers. I told her she needed to be honest with Sam about her feelings and to figure out if they were really meant to be or if they were just settling into a routine. Fast forward a week, and I find out from my mom that Lily's been telling everyone, including my parents, that Jake had cheated on me. Apparently, she'd been telling people that she saw him with another woman a few weeks ago, and that's why I didn't want to talk about the details of the engagement. Obviously, this was a massive lie, and I was completely blindsided. I confronted Lily about it, and she tried to justify herself by saying that it was just a misunderstanding. She claimed that she saw Jake talking to a woman in a coffee shop and assumed they were more than just friends. In reality, it was an old friend of Jake's, and they were catching up after not seeing each other for years. But Lily, in her wisdom, decided that gossiping to my parents was the best way to protect me, even though I never asked her for help or advice on the matter. At this point, I was beyond furious. Not only had she lied about something so serious, but she'd also caused unnecessary tension in my relationship and with my family. My mom was calling me crying, asking if it was true, and I had to go through the whole ordeal of reassuring her that Jake never cheated. My dad was pissed at Jake, and the tension at family gatherings became unbearable. My fiancé was angry with me for not confronting Lily sooner, and I felt like I was stuck in the middle of a mess I didn't create. I tried talking to Lily again, asking her why she'd done this, and she said she was looking out for me because she thought I was too blinded by love to see the truth. She genuinely believed that Jake had done something wrong, despite all the evidence to the contrary. To make matters worse, She started blaming me for not taking her side and claimed that I was more interested in protecting Jake's reputation than our family's well-being. I don't know why, but I let it go for a while. I didn't want to cause a huge family rift over something so petty. But here's where I think I might have messed up. A few days ago, Lily reached out to me, asking for help. Apparently, Sam had dumped her, and she was heartbroken. She wanted me to help her get back together with him, or at least console her through the breakup. But after everything that happened with Jake and the lies she spread, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I told Lily that I wasn't going to help her. I told her that I didn't appreciate how she tried to sabotage my relationship with Jake, and that I couldn't trust her anymore. She started crying, saying I was being cruel, and that I was just holding a grudge. She told me that if I didn't help her, I was being a terrible sister, and that she needed me more than ever. But I stood firm and told her that I couldn't be there for her after everything she did. Now, the family is divided. My parents are upset with me for not helping Lily, and they keep telling me I need to be the bigger person and support her, especially since she's going through a tough time. They also think I should just move past the whole lie situation and not hold it against her. But I just don't know if I can. I've been there for Lily countless times before, but this felt different. She really hurt me, and I'm not sure if I can just sweep it under the rug. AITA for refusing to help my sister after everything she's done? Or should I just let it go and be the bigger person? I genuinely feel like I'm in the right, but the pressure from my family is making me second-guess myself. I don't want to lose my sister, but at the same time, I don't want to tolerate her manipulation and lies anymore. Please, I could really use some unbiased advice here. Thanks. I, 32F, and my husband, 35M, have been married for 7 years. And for the most part, we have a pretty peaceful relationship. We both work full-time jobs. I'm a marketing manager, and my husband is an engineer. We don't have any kids, but we do have a mortgage, and we've been working hard to save and make our house feel like a home. A few months ago, my sister-in-law, Sarah, 30F, lost her job. It was pretty sudden. She had been working as a graphic designer at a small firm, but they had to downsize, and unfortunately, her position was eliminated. We were all sympathetic about the situation, and my husband and I offered to help her by letting her stay with us until she got back on her feet. At the time, we didn't expect it to be more than a couple of months, and we made it clear that it would be temporary. Now, I know that offering temporary help sounds reasonable, but I really underestimated how much it would affect my daily life. At first, Sarah was really good about keeping to herself. She stayed in the guest room, paid a minimal amount towards groceries, and was mostly out of the house during the day, attending job interviews, networking events, and trying to find work. But over time, things started to shift. She got comfortable, like too comfortable. As weeks passed, Sarah stopped looking for jobs as actively as she had before. She started staying home during the day, not really contributing to the household in any way. I don't expect her to pay rent or anything, but I do expect basic courtesy. She didn't help out with chores, didn't cook, and rarely even offered to contribute to groceries. It was as if she was just living here, completely unbothered by the fact that she wasn't pulling her weight. It also became clear that Sarah wasn't planning on leaving anytime soon. When I brought up the topic of her timeline, she would brush it off. Oh, I'm still figuring things out, or I just need more time to find something right. At first, I was sympathetic, but after a while, I started getting frustrated. She was just sitting around all day and not showing any effort to contribute to the household or make an exit plan. One day, I walked into the living room and found her watching TV, eating snacks that I had just bought for the week, and scrolling through her phone. It felt like she wasn't even making an attempt to be productive, and it really hit me that this situation was not working. I talked to my husband about it, and he agreed that it was getting to be a problem, but he was hesitant to confront Sarah about it. He's always been the peacemaker in the family, and he didn't want to hurt her feelings. Things got worse when Sarah started bringing her friends over in the evenings, sometimes without asking. They'd hang out in the living room, blasting music, eating our food, and staying late into the night. I tried talking to Sarah about it politely, asking her to keep the noise down and to be mindful of us since we had early mornings for work. She apologized, but the behavior didn't stop. I began feeling like I had no personal space, no peace and quiet, and I was getting overwhelmed. Eventually, I had had enough. I told my husband that I didn't think we could keep doing this. I explained that I wasn't comfortable living with someone who wasn't respecting our space or our boundaries, and that I felt like I was being taken advantage of. I asked him to talk to Sarah and tell her that she needed to either contribute more or start making plans to move out. This conversation didn't go well. My husband tried talking to her, but she was defensive, and there were tears involved. She said that she didn't have anywhere else to go, and that she was doing the best she could by staying with us while looking for a job. She also pointed out that it wasn't like I was giving her a hard deadline to leave, and that the more pressure I put on her, the less likely she was to find a job. I started feeling guilty. I didn't want to seem heartless or unsympathetic. After all, she was my sister-in-law, and I didn't want to turn her away when she had nowhere else to go. But the longer she stayed, the more it started feeling like I was being taken advantage of. It felt like my life was being put on hold for someone else's comfort. A couple of weeks ago, I finally reached my breaking point. I came home from work to find Sarah lounging in the living room with her friends again, and I just snapped. I told her that she needed to leave. I was polite about it, but firm. I said that I didn't mind helping her out, but I couldn't keep living like this. I told her that it wasn't healthy for either of us, and that she needed to either contribute more or find a place to live. She was upset, and so was my husband. He was mad that I had made the decision without consulting him first. He said I was being too harsh, and that we should be more patient with her. But honestly, I was tired of being the one to shoulder all the responsibility. It felt like my concerns weren't being heard, and I was the one who had to set boundaries because no one else was stepping up. My husband and I have been fighting a lot over this. He thinks I'm being unreasonable and that I should give Sarah more time. He says she's going through a tough time and that we should be more supportive. But I'm starting to feel like I've been nothing but supportive for months now, and I need to prioritize my own well-being. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in with us any longer? Did I go too far by setting a boundary that might seem harsh? Or is my husband right, and I should have been more patient and understanding? AITA for not paying my friend back after she bought me a plane ticket and I decided to not use it? So here's the situation. I, 26F, have a friend, Samantha, 27F, who I've known for about 7 years. We've always been close, but our relationship has been a bit rocky the last couple of years. We went through phases of not talking, usually due to some misunderstandings, but we always came back to each other. Recently, we've been in a better place, but I'm starting to question how much she actually values our friendship, and now I'm wondering if I was in the wrong this whole time. Here's the backstory. A few months ago, Samantha invited me to visit her in another state for a weekend getaway. I've been going through some personal stuff, work stress, a breakup, and just general life chaos, and she thought it would be good for me to get away and spend time with her. I didn't have the money for a plane ticket at the time, so she offered to buy it for me. She said it wasn't a big deal and that I could pay her back later when I had the funds. She even insisted it would be a gift and not to worry about paying her back right away. At first, I was hesitant, but after some back and forth, I finally agreed. I've always trusted her and figured she was being genuine about not expecting anything in return immediately. So she booked the flight for me, and the trip was set for 2 weeks later. The problem started about a week before the trip. I had a sudden work project that I couldn't get out of, and I just didn't feel like I could take time off. It wasn't something I planned for, and it was honestly very frustrating because I'd been looking forward to the getaway. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the timing wasn't great. I was exhausted from work, still emotionally drained from my breakup, and even though I wanted to see Samantha, I didn't feel like I was in the right mental space for a trip like this. I reached out to her and explained that I wasn't going to be able to make it. She was disappointed, but she understood. We had a conversation about rescheduling the trip for a later time, and she seemed okay with it. But I didn't feel right about just backing out without offering something in return, especially since she'd spent money on the ticket. So I said, "I'm really sorry. I'll pay you back for the ticket as soon as I can." She said, "No rush, it's fine. Just let me know when you can. I want you to take care of yourself." Now, here's where things get complicated. I've been thinking a lot about the situation, and after some reflection, I realized that I really didn't want to go on the trip at all. I know that sounds bad, but I started to feel like it wasn't something I genuinely wanted and that I was only going along with it because it was something Samantha wanted. I love her, but I felt like I was being pushed into a decision I didn't fully agree with just to make her happy. The problem is that I hadn't told her this. I just kind of let it slide, and since I hadn't actually flown anywhere, I thought maybe it was okay for me to just let the situation go. After a few weeks passed, I still hadn't paid her back for the ticket. I kept putting it off because, honestly, I wasn't sure if I wanted to pay for something I didn't use. The ticket was already bought, but I hadn't taken the trip. Part of me felt like I wasn't obligated to pay for something I didn't use, and part of me felt guilty for not being upfront with her about my feelings. A couple of weeks ago, Samantha reached out again and asked when I was going to send the money. I didn't know how to explain myself, so I just said, "I'm sorry, I haven't been able to afford it yet, but I'll get the money to you soon." She said that it was fine, but I could tell she was getting a little frustrated. She mentioned that she had plans to travel soon and was tight on money herself, so having that $300 would help her out. That's when I started feeling even worse. I knew that I had to either pay her back or come clean about not wanting to go on the trip in the first place, but I didn't want to upset her or make her feel like I didn't appreciate the gesture. At this point, I still hadn't paid her back for the ticket, and every time she brought it up, I felt more guilty. I wanted to tell her that I didn't think I owed her the money anymore because I hadn't used the ticket, but I didn't know how to say it without sounding like I was being a total jerk. After a few more weeks of going back and forth, she texted me again and said she needed the money soon because she was about to book another flight, and the expense of buying me the ticket was putting a strain on her finances. She reminded me that she had originally said I could pay her back whenever, but that it had been months, and she was starting to feel like I wasn't going to follow through. This time, I decided to send her a message explaining how I felt. I told her that I appreciated the gesture, but that since I didn't use the ticket, I didn't feel comfortable paying for it. I said I understood if she was upset, but that it just didn't feel right to me to pay for something I didn't use. She was not happy. She texted back almost immediately, saying that she felt hurt and that she thought we were better friends than that. She said she couldn't believe I would get out of paying her back just because I didn't go on the trip, and that it wasn't about the trip itself, but about respecting the fact that she'd spent her own money on me. She said I was acting selfish, and I needed to own up to my responsibilities. Now I'm stuck. I feel like maybe I did handle this poorly. I should have been upfront about my feelings earlier, but at the same time, I'm not sure if it's fair for her to expect me to pay for something I didn't use. I know she bought the ticket with the intention of me going, but I didn't, and I feel like the money should have been refunded or at least repurposed, not left hanging on me. So, AITA for not paying her back for the plane ticket after I decided not to go? Or is she right that I'm being selfish and dodging my responsibility? TLDR, my friend bought me a plane ticket for a trip I ended up canceling. I haven't paid her back yet because I didn't use the ticket, and now she's mad. AITA for not paying her back. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what can be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in after her house was damaged in a storm. My husband, Ben, and I have been married for 5 years. We don't have kids yet, but we have a pretty quiet life. We live in a modest house that we've worked hard for, and we've been fortunate enough to have a decent financial situation, which means we have a bit of space to spare. Ben has a sister, Nina, who's 2 years younger than him. She's always been kind of unpredictable. She tends to rely heavily on other people, particularly Ben, for financial and emotional support. Nina has had a rough life, but there's always been a sense that she could do more for herself, but just doesn't seem to want to. A few months ago, a huge storm hit our area. It caused some serious damage to the roofs and structures of a lot of houses, including Nina's. She reached out to Ben right away and explained that her house was unlivable because of water damage. At first, she said she'd stay with friends, but then it became clear she didn't have anywhere to go long-term. Ben asked me if we could let her stay with us, and I said no. I want to preface this by saying that I love Ben and I care about his family, but I've always had concerns about Nina's behavior. When we were first dating, Ben would constantly have to bail her out financially, loans that would never get paid back, credit card debts, car repairs, etc. It seemed like she was always in crisis mode, and while I understand that life can be tough, there came a point when I just didn't think it was healthy for Ben to keep enabling her. Over the years, we've had a lot of conversations about boundaries, and Ben has gotten better about not constantly fixing Nina's problems. But I still feel like Nina takes advantage of him, and by extension me. Ben was really upset when I said no. He argued that this was family, and it's the kind of thing that we should support. And I agree. I really do. I think if it were a temporary situation, I would feel differently. But Nina has a history of overstaying her welcome. The few times she stayed with us before, she's never been respectful of our space or boundaries. She leaves her things all over the place, uses our stuff without asking, and doesn't pitch in around the house at all. I know it's not all bad, but the thought of having her move in permanently, even just for a few months, was making me really anxious. After I said no, Nina started reaching out to Ben directly, asking if there was any way we could help. She was really upset and kept saying things like, "I'm family. Why won't you help me?" Ben got more and more torn, and eventually he asked me again, telling me that Nina had no other options. I still said no, but I told him I would be open to helping her find temporary housing or connecting her with organizations that might offer assistance. That's when things started getting really tense. Ben said that I was being selfish and unreasonable, that I didn't understand how hard things were for Nina right now. He told me that I was making him choose between me and his sister, which felt like an unfair way of putting it. I never told him he couldn't have a relationship with her. I just didn't want her to move in with us. I was getting frustrated because it felt like Ben wasn't seeing my side of things. I work from home, and having Nina around, in her current state, would have disrupted my routine in ways I couldn't predict. I also didn't want to risk creating resentment in our relationship by allowing this situation to drag on for months. It was hard, and I won't lie, I felt a little bit like I was being painted as the villain in this. But Ben's family has a tendency to guilt him into doing things for them, and I didn't want that to happen to him again. The pressure kept mounting, and eventually, Ben suggested that he would go visit Nina and help her with temporary accommodations without my involvement. I thought that was fair, and I agreed, but I made it clear that I would not be part of any plans to have her stay with us. A week later, Ben came home and told me that Nina had managed to secure a temporary rental through a friend of hers. He was relieved, and I was glad to hear it, but the tension between us had only gotten worse. Nina started texting me, asking why I was being so difficult and why I wouldn't just help out. I didn't respond to her messages, but the situation made me feel uncomfortable. It didn't feel like she was asking for help. It felt like she was demanding it. Ben and I had another argument about it a few days ago. He said that I was being unfair and that I could have just let Nina stay with us for a little while. He said I was being cold and selfish, and that he was starting to feel like I didn't care about his family. I tried to explain my side, but it didn't seem to matter. I just feel like I'm being asked to take on something that could ultimately hurt our relationship and our home, and I don't think that's selfish. Now, I feel like there's this huge rift between me and Ben, and I'm starting to wonder if I handled this situation wrong. I love him, but I also know that boundaries are important, and I don't think it would be healthy for Nina to move in here. She's never been able to stand on her own 2 feet for any significant amount of time, and I just don't think it's my responsibility to fix that. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister-in-law move in with us after her house was damaged in the storm. I, 30F, have been married to my husband, 32M, for 3 years. We have a decent relationship, though like any couple, we have our share of challenges. One thing that has recently become a huge issue, however, is my dog, Bailey. She's a 5-year-old rescue who I've had since she was a puppy. I adopted her when I was living alone and struggling with some tough stuff in my life, and she's been my emotional support animal ever since. I've always been very close to her, and she's always been there for me, even when I didn't have anyone else. The problem started a few weeks ago when my husband's family came to stay with us for a weekend visit. His parents, who are in their late 50s, and his younger sister, 26, have always had a bit of a strained relationship with me. They're very traditional, and they think I'm too independent, too headstrong, and sometimes they've even said I'm too much. It's not like they outright hate me, but they don't get me, and I've always been a bit of an outsider in their family dynamic. So, when they arrived for the visit, I wasn't thrilled. I enjoy hosting and spending time with family, but the whole vibe with them is always a little tense. Anyway, Bailey, my dog, is very protective of me. She's also a little cautious around new people, but she's never aggressive. She usually takes a little time to warm up to strangers, and it takes her a while to feel comfortable in new situations. When my husband's family arrived, Bailey was understandably a little standoffish. She did what she usually does when meeting new people. She hung back, barked a little, and kept her distance. It wasn't anything out of the ordinary, but his family made it clear they weren't happy about it. His sister in particular kept complaining that Bailey was ruining the vibe and being standoffish on purpose. She said it was disrespectful for Bailey to behave that way in her own home. I told her that Bailey wasn't doing it on purpose. She just needed some time to adjust, but his sister wasn't having it. She insisted that I do something about it. At this point, I didn't want to make a scene, so I tried to keep Bailey out of the living room for most of the visit. I'd take her for walks or let her nap in the bedroom, but the constant comments about her behavior kept coming. His mom started saying things like, "It's a shame your dog doesn't know how to be social," and his dad mentioned that dogs should be trained better. It was getting uncomfortable, and I could tell Bailey was stressed, which only made things worse. Then, 2 days into the visit, his parents dropped a bombshell. They said that since I clearly couldn't control Bailey and she was disrupting their family dynamic, they wanted me to send her to a kennel for the remainder of their stay. I was honestly floored by the request. I've never been asked to send my dog away before. I was upset, but tried to keep calm and said I wasn't comfortable with that. I told them that Bailey was my emotional support animal, and she wasn't just a pet to me. She was family, and I wasn't going to just send her off to a kennel because they didn't like her. That's when my husband got involved. He told me he understood both sides, but maybe it would be easier for everyone if I just took Bailey to the kennel for the weekend. He said it was only a few days, and it wasn't like I would be abandoning her, just giving her a little break. I felt betrayed. I reminded him that they were the ones who came into our home and demanded things. It felt like he was choosing them over me, and I was really hurt by it. I refused to back down. I told him I wasn't sending my dog away, and I wouldn't compromise on that. His family was stunned, and there was a lot of tension in the house for the rest of the weekend. My husband tried to stay neutral, but I could tell he was uncomfortable with the situation. His sister started making passive-aggressive comments like, "I guess I'll just have to avoid your dog the whole time then, and I hope she doesn't bite me, though." After they left, my husband and I had a long conversation. He said he understood my point, but that I needed to consider the bigger picture. He said I had to think about how my dog's behavior affected our home and our life together. He also said I was being unreasonable for not just finding a compromise, especially when it was only for a few days. I felt really hurt by the way he spoke about it. I love my dog, and I would never put her in a situation where she's not comfortable, especially for the sake of appeasing his family. Since the visit, things have been tense between us. I feel like he's siding with them, and I'm feeling really unsupported. He's told me that I'm stubborn and that I need to be more flexible, but I feel like my loyalty to my dog and my mental health are being dismissed. I know it wasn't the best way to handle things, but I just don't think I should have to choose between my dog and my husband's family. I'm stuck in a tough spot, and I'm not sure if I'm being unreasonable or if they're the ones overreacting. So, AITA for refusing to send my dog to a kennel during my in-laws' visit, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he uninvited me and caused a family feud. So, to give a little backstory, I, 28F, have always been really close to my family. I have one older brother, Jake, 31M, and we've always had a good relationship growing up. However, in the last few years, things have been a bit rocky. I moved out of state for work, and Jake got really serious with his girlfriend, Sophie, 30F, who became more or less part of the family. At first, I thought it was great. Sophie is smart, funny, and charming, and she seemed to mesh well with the family dynamics. Fast forward a bit, and Jake and Sophie get engaged. The engagement wasn't a huge surprise, but what came next was. About 2 months before the wedding, I got a text from Jake saying that I was no longer invited to the wedding. At first, I thought it was some sort of joke. I mean, I wasn't the kind of person to skip important family events. So I called him immediately. "Jake, what's going on? You're joking, right?" I said, but he wasn't joking. He explained that Sophie had some issues with me and that it was affecting their relationship. To be honest, I was shocked. I had always been polite to Sophie, and we'd had some good times together. I never thought I did anything to make her dislike me. I tried asking Jake for more details, but he just said, "It's not just about you, it's about the dynamic. Sophie doesn't feel comfortable with you being there." Now, at this point, I was honestly a little hurt, but I tried to keep my cool. I asked if we could talk about it, like adults, and figure out what went wrong. Jake refused. He said it was a done deal, and that he didn't want any drama at his wedding. I was floored. I had never heard of anything like this. I didn't know Sophie was uncomfortable with me, and I didn't understand why Jake couldn't give me a chance to explain or fix things if something had gone wrong. I called my parents, hoping they would be able to help mediate, but they just shrugged it off. They told me that I should respect Jake's decision, and that he was just trying to avoid family drama. They even said I should give him space. I was furious. I felt like no one was taking my side, or even caring about how I was feeling. I couldn't just let it go, though. So, I decided to talk to Sophie myself. I reached out to her directly, trying to be as calm and respectful as possible. I said something like, "Hey, Sophie, I don't know what happened between us, but I want to understand. Can we talk about it? I don't want to cause any problems, but I'd really appreciate it if you could explain why you feel this way." I thought it was a good approach, but Sophie completely shut me down. She responded with something along the lines of, "It's not the time or place to talk about this. If Jake says you're not invited, then that's how it is. Please don't contact me again." I was honestly blindsided. It felt like she didn't even care to clear the air or even give me a chance. At this point, I was pretty devastated. I've never been one to stir up family drama, and I've always tried to be the person who gets along with everyone. I didn't want to cause a scene at the wedding or make things worse, but I also didn't want to let Jake and Sophie treat me like this. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that this wasn't just about the wedding. It was about how they were treating me as a person. I didn't deserve to be excluded without any explanation or chance to make things right. A few days later, I told Jake that I wouldn't be attending the wedding. I felt like if they didn't want me there, I wasn't going to beg for an invitation. I told him that if he wanted to exclude me from such an important event in his life, then that was his choice, but it would be a choice I couldn't accept. He immediately got angry, calling me dramatic and selfish. He told me I was making things all about me and that I was ruining his special day. I was floored again. How was I making it about me? I was respecting his decision, but I didn't think it was right for him to treat me like that. I also got a message from Sophie later on, accusing me of making her look bad and saying that I was playing the victim. She said I needed to grow up and accept that not everyone is going to like me. Honestly, that was the last straw. I hadn't done anything wrong, but here they were blaming me for everything. The fallout from this has been ugly. My parents have sided with Jake, saying that I need to get over it and that it's his wedding, so I should just respect his decision. My friends have been supportive, but they all agree that it's really weird how this went down. Some of them have even suggested that Jake and Sophie might be projecting their own issues onto me, but I don't know if that's true. I've been so upset that I can't think straight. Now, the wedding is only a week away, and Jake has made it clear that if I don't show up, we'll be estranged for good. He says I'm burning bridges and that I'll regret this decision for the rest of my life. But I still feel like my dignity is worth more than attending a wedding where I'm clearly not wanted. So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after he uninvited me and caused a family feud? I feel like I've tried everything to make things right, but they're just making me feel like I'm in the wrong. Am I the asshole for sticking to my principles and walking away from this situation? Or am I being petty and overreacting? AITA for telling my friend that her girl boss attitude is toxic and ruining our friendship? So I, 26F, have a friend, Sarah, 27F, who's been in my life for about 5 years. We met in college, and at first, she was the kind of person who had this fun, carefree attitude, and I really liked being around her. Over the last year or so, though, I've noticed a huge shift in her behavior, and I've been having a hard time navigating how I feel about it. Let me give you some background. Sarah's always been someone who wanted to be successful, which I totally respect. She works hard, has a great job, and is extremely driven, but it's all started to feel a bit much lately. She has this girl boss mentality, and it's honestly starting to feel toxic. She talks about it all the time, how she's always hustling, grinding, and getting what she deserves, and it's really rubbed me the wrong way. At first, I was supportive. I liked that she was passionate about her career and wanted to achieve big things. But recently, it feels like she's so consumed with this mindset that she's neglecting our friendship and, honestly, even basic human decency. She's been telling me things like, if you're not constantly leveling up, you're falling behind, and you can't afford to be lazy or take a break. It's all well and good to be motivated, but she's acting like it's the only thing that matters. If I talk about my own challenges or struggles, she brushes it off or tells me I just need to push through. We've had a couple of hangouts recently where I've opened up about my own issues, things like work stress, family drama, or just general burnout. Instead of offering empathy, Sarah just goes off about how she doesn't have time for those low-vibe conversations and how if I just shifted my mindset, I'd be fine. She even told me, "You need to stop being so negative if you want to be successful." I've tried to explain that I'm not being negative. I'm just being human, and I need her to listen, not lecture. But every time I try to talk about anything other than how I'm hustling, she shuts me down. It's not just the constant grind talk, though. The bigger issue for me has been how she started to treat me like I'm inferior for not sharing her mindset. There have been several instances where she's made comments about how I should be more successful by now, or I need to get my life together. She said things like, "I can't believe you still don't have your own apartment," or "I thought by your age, you'd be at a different point in your career." It's clear to me that she started to see me as someone who isn't living up to her standards, and it feels really hurtful. Now, I'm not saying I don't have my own goals or ambitions. I do. I work hard at my job, and I have plans for my future. But I'm also a person who values work-life balance, and I like taking time for myself. I believe it's okay to rest and not be constantly striving. I'm not interested in the hustle culture that she's all about, and it's starting to feel like she's judging me for not buying into that mindset. We've had a few arguments about this, and the most recent one was the tipping point. Last weekend, we went out for drinks, and Sarah started going off about how she's constantly elevating and how she can't hang out with people who don't get it. I was so fed up that I finally told her, "Honestly, your whole girl boss attitude is toxic, and it's making me feel like I'm not good enough." I told her I felt like she was devaluing our friendship and treating me like I wasn't enough just because I wasn't obsessed with this constant grind and hustle. She was taken aback at first and tried to defend herself by saying, "I'm just being real with you. If you want more out of life, you have to put in the work." She kept insisting that she wasn't being harsh, just honest, but I told her that honesty doesn't have to be cruel. I said that I understood she was passionate about her career, but she didn't need to impose that mindset on everyone else, especially me. After I said all that, she got upset and told me that if I didn't want to grow, then she didn't see how we could be friends anymore. She said she didn't have time for people who don't want to elevate themselves. She even implied that I was holding her back. I was really hurt by that, but I didn't want to argue anymore, so I just left. Since then, she's been texting me saying things like, "I'm really disappointed you can't see where I'm coming from, and I don't know if we can continue being friends if you're not on the same wavelength." I've been thinking about it for days, and now I'm starting to wonder if maybe I'm the one who's wrong here. Maybe I just don't understand her ambition and drive the way she understands it. But at the same time, I'm frustrated because I feel like I've been completely invalidated and the person I considered a close friend has been dismissive of my feelings. So, AITA for telling her that her girl boss attitude is toxic and ruining our friendship? Should I have been more understanding of her mindset? Or am I justified in feeling hurt and trying to stand up for myself? AITA for not letting my sister move into my house after her divorce, even though she's broke and homeless? So here's the deal. I, 32F, have a sister, let's call her Carla, 30F. We've never been super close, but we've always had a decent relationship. Growing up, we had some sibling rivalry, but nothing too crazy. I moved out of our parents' house when I was 22, and after that, we mostly kept in touch through holidays and the occasional phone call. Carla got married when she was 25 to a guy named Brad. and they seemed really happy at first. They bought a house together and had 2 kids, a girl, 5, and a boy, 3. Over the last year, I noticed she started posting some pretty cryptic stuff on social media about being miserable and trapped and losing herself. I reached out to her a few times, but she was vague and didn't want to talk about it. About 2 months ago, Carla called me, crying. She said she was getting a divorce because Brad had been cheating on her for over a year, and she had just found out. She was devastated, obviously, and was also concerned because Brad had left her in financial ruin. She claimed he stopped paying the bills, ran up debt in her name, and refused to help with the kids. She told me that she didn't know what to do and was really behind on everything. I felt bad for her, but I didn't know how to help right away. A few weeks later, she called me again, this time saying she'd been kicked out of the house. Apparently, Brad had gotten a new girlfriend and was demanding that she leave. She said she had no money, no savings, and nowhere to go. She asked if she could move in with me temporarily while she got back on her feet. She didn't say exactly how long she expected to stay, but it was clear from her tone that she was hoping it would be a while. Now, I want to be clear. I do not have the biggest house. It's a 3-bedroom townhouse that I bought 3 years ago. I've been living on my own since I bought it, and I love the peace and privacy. I'm also not rich, just middle class, making a decent salary, but I don't have a lot of room to spare. I live in a city that's expensive, so even though I have a house, I don't want to give up the space I've worked hard for. I also want to be clear that while I feel sympathy for her situation, I wasn't entirely thrilled with how Carla had handled things in the past. She's always been kind of reckless with her finances and tends to make bad decisions. When I heard that she'd been in an unhappy marriage for years but stayed because of financial security, I wasn't surprised but also wasn't impressed. I'm not saying I don't understand why she stayed. Being in an abusive or controlling situation is complicated, but she didn't reach out for help until things were already falling apart. I didn't feel like it was my responsibility to bail her out. I told Carla that I didn't have the space or the resources to take her in right now, and that she needed to figure out a more permanent solution. I offered to help her look for affordable housing or maybe get some financial advice, but I was very firm about not letting her move in. I told her I was sorry for everything she was going through, but that I couldn't have her living with me. She flipped out on me. She started crying, saying that I was her only family, and that if I didn't help her, she would have nowhere to go. She accused me of being selfish and cold-hearted, and said that I was turning my back on her when she needed me the most. She called me a bad sister and said that I was abandoning her in her time of need. Honestly, it was a pretty big emotional attack, and I was taken aback by how much she was making me feel guilty for not letting her move in. I stood my ground, though, and refused to give in. I told her that it wasn't about not caring, but that I couldn't allow myself to be put in a position where I'd end up resenting her or enabling her to avoid taking responsibility for her own life. She accused me of being unfeeling, and then the conversation ended with her hanging up on me. A few days later, our parents called me, furious. They told me I was being heartless and that family should always stick together, no matter what. They said I could at least let her stay for a few weeks while she figured things out. I explained my reasoning to them, but they were equally unsympathetic. They said I should stop being so independent and start acting like a family member again. I'm not going to lie, it hurt. I feel like I'm being made out to be the villain here, but I honestly don't know if I was wrong. Carla is an adult, and she has her own responsibilities to deal with. I've helped her in the past with small things, like lending her money when she was in a pinch, but I don't want to end up in a situation where I'm enabling her to just keep relying on me to solve her problems. Plus, I've been living on my own for years, and I'm used to having control over my space in my life. I try to be there for her emotionally, but I just can't let her move in. AITA? Edit. Since people are asking, I've reached out to a few friends and people I trust for advice, and they've all told me the same thing, that I'm not responsible for fixing her life and that setting boundaries is important. I just feel like my parents and Carla are making me feel like I'm being an unreasonable person. The more I think about it, the more I'm convinced I'm right, but the guilt keeps creeping in. Also, I do know she's not just trying to take advantage of me. I believe she really is struggling. But at the end of the day, I'm not a financial safety net for her, and I can't just invite her into my space and my life without it affecting me too. That's the part people don't seem to get. If she's that desperate, she can go to a shelter or apply for government assistance. Am I wrong for thinking this way? AITA for kicking my sister out of my wedding after she insulted my fiancé and caused a scene? I'm 29 and my fiancé, let's call him John, is 32. We've been together for almost 4 years, and our wedding was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. I come from a relatively large family, 3 brothers and 1 sister. Let's call her Sarah. We've always been pretty close, though there's some tension with Sarah. She's the kind of person who tends to make everything about herself, and she's always been a little dramatic, I guess. Still, we've never had major issues, but things have been different since I got engaged. My fiancé and I planned a fairly traditional wedding. We want a small ceremony with close friends and family, but we were still going to splurge a little on things like the venue and catering. John and I agreed from the beginning that we wanted our wedding to be something special and reflective of who we are as a couple. We didn't want anyone to overshadow it, especially family drama. We were clear about this with everyone. But then there was Sarah. She has always been a bit of a bridezilla in her own right, even though she's not married. It's like she has this thing where she constantly makes comments about what her wedding would be like if she were getting married right now. And honestly, it feels a little like she's trying to live through me. I tried to ignore it at first, but she kept pushing it. For example, every time I brought up a wedding detail, she'd either one-up me or suggest that my ideas were too simple or not classy enough. At first, I brushed it off, but when it started happening more often, it started getting on my nerves. The tension finally exploded when we started sending out invitations. Sarah found out she wasn't going to be my maid of honor. She had expected to be, even though we've never had a conversation about it. My best friend, Jenna, is someone I've known since childhood, and she was always going to be my maid of honor. Sarah didn't take it well, but I figured she'd get over it. Instead, she pulled the "I'm so hurt" card and started guilt-tripping me. She claimed that I was excluding her from something so important, and she even went as far as to say I was trying to distance myself from her. At this point, I was just trying to get through the wedding planning without any additional stress, so I told her that I needed her to respect my decision and that my relationship with John and Jenna had been a priority for a long time. She didn't respond well to that. Sarah ended up texting my mom, saying that I was being selfish and not appreciating family, and that she'd been left out of my wedding in favor of a friend who was more important to me than my own blood. It really hurt my feelings, and I felt like I was being put in the middle of a family conflict that I didn't want or need. Fast forward to the day before the wedding. My family arrived at the venue early to help set things up. My sister was already acting cold, which I thought was just her way of dealing with her feelings. I tried to talk to her privately, but she just kept brushing me off. Then, the day of the wedding, things took a turn for the worse. The ceremony was beautiful. John and I were so happy, and everything was going smoothly. The reception was happening, and everyone was having a good time. But then Sarah started making comments about John. She'd been drinking, and I guess it gave her a little too much courage. During the reception, she started telling a few people that she thought John was boring and not good enough for me. She even went as far as to suggest that I could do better. I could feel my blood boiling when I overheard her. And the worst part was when she turned to me and said, "I don't know what you see in him. He's not your type at all. I'm just being honest." I was furious. John didn't say anything. He just looked at me, but I could tell he was hurt. I walked up to Sarah and asked her what her problem was. She told me she was just looking out for me and didn't want me to make a mistake. I told her to stop insulting my fiancé and that she needed to leave if she couldn't respect us. She laughed and said, "It's just a wedding, calm down." I didn't calm down. At that point, I told her she had to leave. She argued, but I told her if she couldn't keep her comments to herself and show respect for the man I was marrying, then she was not welcome at my wedding. She was in complete shock, and I was too angry to care. She stormed off, causing a huge scene in front of all of our guests. My mom came over and asked what was going on, and I explained. She tried to convince me to let Sarah stay, but I told her no. I told my mom that if she wanted to leave too, she could, but I wasn't going to let Sarah ruin my wedding day. My mom didn't leave, but she was really upset with me. The rest of the night was kind of a blur. I was still fuming, but I tried to focus on having a good time with John, my friends, and the rest of the family. The wedding went on without any more drama, but when I saw Sarah later on, she was really cold toward me. She hasn't talked to me much since then, and when she does, it's just the bare minimum. Now my mom and a few other family members are saying I was wrong for kicking Sarah out, and that I should have handled things more maturely. They think I should have let her stay and talked it out later. But I'm still so hurt by her comments and her lack of respect for me and my relationship. I don't think I did anything wrong, but the family is split. AITA for kicking my sister out of my wedding after everything she said about John. AITA for refusing to let my sister move in after she burned all of my furniture. So, I, 29F, have a sister, Mia, 27F, who has always had a complicated relationship with our family. I love her, but she's a bit unpredictable. Growing up, she was always the rebellious one. I, on the other hand, have been the responsible one, always focused on school, keeping things in order, and being the stable presence in the family. Over the years, I've gotten used to her making bad decisions and causing drama, but I always try to be there for her. For context, I live in a pretty small, cozy 2-bedroom apartment in the city. I work as a freelance graphic designer, and while things aren't always super stable money-wise, I manage to pay my bills, and I really love my place. It's the one place where I feel I have control over my life. My apartment is also fully furnished with furniture I saved up for, and I take a lot of pride in it. I'm a minimalist at heart, so I've spent years curating every single piece of furniture and decoration. I'm very particular about how everything is placed and kept. About 6 months ago, Mia's life took a dramatic turn. She had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, which she had moved into with her ex. To be honest, I don't know all the details, but she told me that her ex was emotionally abusive and she wanted to start fresh. Naturally, I felt bad for her, and even though I knew things were a bit messy with her, I offered to let her stay with me for a few weeks until she could figure things out. This wasn't a decision I made lightly. I'm generally not one to have people stay with me for long periods. My apartment is small, and I enjoy my alone time. But Mia promised it would only be for a few weeks, just long enough for her to get back on her feet. I agreed, even though I was a little hesitant. I figured it would be okay because I'm family, and sometimes you have to help out when things are tough, right? Big mistake. At first, everything was fine. She came over, and we talked about setting up some basic house rules. I asked her to be respectful of my space, and she agreed. The first few days were okay, but then things started to go downhill. She started bringing her friends over without asking, playing loud music late at night, and leaving her stuff everywhere. I'm not a neat freak, but I like to keep my place tidy, and I asked her to be more considerate. She apologized, and for a while, things improved. But after about a month, Mia began to talk more seriously about moving in permanently. She said she'd been looking for apartments, but couldn't find anything she liked, and in the meantime, she'd gotten comfortable here. I told her that wasn't going to work for me. I really value my space, and I was already feeling suffocated. Mia wasn't happy about it, but she accepted it, or at least she pretended to. She told me she'd figure it out soon. Fast forward another month, and Mia was still living with me, and I could tell she wasn't planning on leaving anytime soon. One weekend, I went out of town for a work project that took me away for 3 days. I made sure to remind her the night before I left that I was going to be gone, and I asked her to take care of a few things while I was away. Everything seemed fine. I came back on the 3rd day, and when I walked into my apartment, the smell hit me immediately. It wasn't anything terrible, just a weird, burnt scent. But then I saw it. My entire living room was destroyed. All of my furniture was either scorched, stained, or covered in some kind of sticky residue. My white couch, which I had saved up for, had burn marks on it. My coffee table, which was custom-made, had a large, deep scratch, and my rug looked like it had been dragged through a mud puddle. It was clear something had happened. But what? I didn't know yet. I immediately went to Mia's room to find her. When she opened the door, her hair was messy, her eyes were red, and she was clearly trying to avoid looking me in the eye. "Mia, what happened to my furniture?" I asked. She looked at me, hesitated, and then said, "I don't know. I think I made a mistake." My heart dropped. Apparently, while I was gone, Mia had decided to do some cleaning. She had lit a few candles in my living room and, in her words, accidentally knocked one over. It spilled wax everywhere and set the couch on fire. She tried to fix the damage by covering it with a blanket, but then she got distracted and spilled some wine, which somehow made things worse. After that, she decided to clean up by using a bunch of cleaning products I never use, products I told her not to touch. I was furious. She tried to apologize, saying she didn't mean for it to happen and that she would pay me back for the damages, but I was in complete shock. This wasn't just a minor mistake. It was a huge mess, and it felt completely disrespectful. She had burned my furniture, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized how careless and irresponsible her actions were. I told her she needed to leave immediately. I couldn't believe I had let her stay here in the first place, and now she had ruined things I had worked so hard for. I couldn't look at her without feeling anger and betrayal. She tried to argue, but I wasn't having it. I told her she needed to find somewhere else to stay, and I would not be accepting her apology if she didn't take responsibility for what happened. Mia left that evening, but the tension between us has been building ever since. My parents are now getting involved, and they think I'm being too harsh. They keep saying that Mia is going through a lot, and that I should be more understanding, but they're not the ones who had their things destroyed. They keep telling me that I'm overreacting, that she's family, and that I should just let it go. They also think I should let Mia move back in, but I absolutely refuse. I've tried to explain to my parents that I need my boundaries respected. I know Mia is struggling, but I can't keep putting myself in a position where I'm taken advantage of. The fact that she couldn't even be bothered to tell me about the damage while I was away makes me feel like she doesn't care about my feelings at all. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move back in after she burned all of my furniture?